On October 25, 2025, the Supreme Court struck down all firearm permit systems nationwide. Overnight, the requirement for a government-issued license to carry a gun in public vanished. The court declared that the Second Amendment's right to bear arms cannot be subject to government permission. This ruling sweeps away decades of state and local regulations, making the right to carry a firearm the new national default. States must now overhaul their laws, as the patchwork of strict and lenient permit systems is gone. The decision's impact will be immediate and far-reaching, affecting law enforcement, businesses, and every American. The nation now faces a new, uncertain reality as society adapts to this dramatic legal shift. The Supreme Court's decision set binding rules for the entire country. Today's ruling doesn't just change one law, it erases every state's firearm permit system, creating a single national standard. For decades, states set their own rules, but now, all must comply with this sweeping interpretation of the Second Amendment. The court's authority means this change is not easily reversed. Only a rare new Supreme Court case or a constitutional amendment could undo it. This decision will shape gun laws, court cases, and public debate for generations. The ruling touches a core constitutional right and a fiercely contested public issue. Its effects will ripple through every level of government and society. America's legal landscape on guns has been fundamentally reordered. The Second Amendment's meaning has long been debated. Does it protect a collective or individual right? Today's ruling sides decisively with the individual right, eliminating the need for government approval to carry a gun. Permit systems, once used to balance self-defense with public safety, are now deemed unconstitutional. States once screened applicants with background checks and training. Now those barriers are gone. The court argues that requiring permission undermines the core right to bear arms. This marks a radical departure from a century of licensing practices. The power to decide who carries a gun shifts from government to the individual. The relationship between citizens and the state on gun rights has been fundamentally redefined. This landmark decision builds directly on the foundation set by the 2022 Bruen case, a pivotal moment in Second Amendment law that struck down New York's restrictive permit law for carrying firearms in public. The Bruen ruling sent shockwaves through the legal world, challenging the way states regulate gun ownership and carry rights. Bruen established a new, much stricter test for gun laws, requiring that any regulation must be consistent with the nation's historical tradition of firearm regulation, as understood at the time of the founding. This historical approach dramatically shifted the legal landscape. As a result, Bruen opened the door to a wave of legal challenges against all kinds of gun regulations, from bans on certain types of weapons to restrictions on where and how guns can be carried. Lower courts across the country struggled to interpret and apply the Bruen standard, leading to a patchwork of conflicting rulings and widespread legal confusion. Judges often disagreed on what counted as historical tradition, creating chaos nationwide. To resolve this growing confusion, the Supreme Court stepped in once again, agreeing to hear cases like Hawaii's broad gun-free zone law, which had become a flashpoint in the national debate over gun rights. In its new ruling, the court declared that requiring a license to carry a gun in public has no meaningful historical basis, fundamentally changing the legal landscape for gun owners and lawmakers alike. While some regulations on specific sensitive locations, like schools or government buildings, may still be allowed, the core right to carry a firearm can no longer be subject to layers of bureaucratic approval or discretionary permitting. This decision goes even further than Bruen, establishing a clear, controversial national standard that will shape gun laws and rights for years to come, sparking heated debate across the country. The era of permits is effectively over. The right to carry a firearm is now the default rule in America, marking a dramatic shift in the nation's approach to the Second Amendment. Supporters of the ruling are celebrating it as a major victory for personal freedom and individual rights, emphasizing that constitutional protections, especially those enshrined in the Second Amendment, should not be subject to government approval or bureaucratic hurdles. They argue that requiring permits or licenses to exercise a fundamental right undermines the very spirit of the Constitution. These advocates believe that permit laws and restrictions only serve to inconvenience and penalize law-abiding citizens, while doing little to stop criminals who ignore the law anyway. In their view, allowing more responsible citizens to carry firearms could actually deter crime, making communities safer by increasing the likelihood that would-be offenders will be confronted by armed resistance. On the other hand, critics of the decision describe it as reckless and dangerous, warning that it strips away essential safeguards, such as mandatory background checks, safety training, and oversight. They argue that these measures are crucial for preventing firearms from falling into the wrong hands. Opponents fear that more guns in public spaces will inevitably lead to more violence, accidental shootings, and tragic confrontations, while also making the already difficult job of law enforcement even more challenging and risky. They contend that the ruling puts gun rights above the urgent need for public safety, ignoring the ongoing crisis of gun violence that claims thousands of lives each year in America and devastates families and communities. The debate is fierce and deeply emotional. Some see this as a restoration of liberty and a return to constitutional principles, while others view it as a direct threat to the safety and well-being of communities across the nation. Despite their differences, both sides agree on one thing: the stakes for American society have never been higher, and the outcome of this debate will shape the nation's future for years to come. As the country grapples with this new era, the nation finds itself more divided than ever, with passionate voices on both sides, anxiously awaiting what the future will bring. Daily life will change dramatically as more people begin to carry guns openly. Even in neighborhoods and cities where it was once a rare sight, the presence of firearms will become a visible part of the urban landscape, altering the way people move through their communities and interact with one another. For many, the sight of firearms in public spaces will quickly become routine, but for others, it may be a source of anxiety or discomfort. Everyday activities like shopping for groceries, taking children to the park, or commuting to work will now include the added awareness of who might be carrying a weapon nearby. Police officers will no longer be able to ask for permits, making it much harder to distinguish between those who are legally carrying and those who may pose a threat. This new reality will challenge law enforcement's ability to keep communities safe. Officers must now make quick, high-stakes judgments with less information than before, raising the risks for everyone involved, both civilians and police. Split-second decisions could have serious consequences in tense situations. Private businesses still have the right to ban guns on their premises, but enforcing these policies will spark new cultural battles and force owners to take public stances. Some customers may feel safer, while others may feel their rights are being restricted. Public spaces, like parks, libraries, and government buildings, must now navigate a patchwork of new legal uncertainties about gun-free zones. Local governments and institutions will face tough decisions about how to balance safety, rights, and community expectations. The overall sense of safety in public may shift as concerns grow about arguments escalating or accidental shootings occurring. Emergency responders may face new challenges as they respond to incidents in a more heavily armed society. The social fabric of daily life is set to change in unpredictable ways. Communities will debate, adapt, and sometimes clash over what these new norms mean for their shared spaces and values. Americans will have to adjust to a world where carrying a gun is the norm, not the exception. This shift will touch every aspect of daily life, from how people interact with strangers to how they feel about their own safety and freedom. States with strict permit laws are scrambling to respond, seeking new ways to regulate guns within constitutional limits. Some may expand gun-free zones, but every new law will face legal challenges. Congress faces pressure to act, but deep divisions make major federal action unlikely. Lawsuits will erupt over what counts as a sensitive place, leading to years of litigation. The fight over gun rights is far from over. It's just moved to new battlegrounds. The Supreme Court's decision marks a turning point, shifting the balance between individual rights and public safety. The coming years will reveal whether this new era brings more freedom, more danger, or both. America now faces the challenge of adapting to a world without firearm permits.